this is just deep to me. I can't understand how Councilman Dwayne Caraway is actually in another marriage. He's been married, and he's been married to his second wife for a long time. Is it possible to still be carrying around things from a relationship that ended over 20 years ago?
Oh, yes. Yes.
But
yes.
don't you think it's just kind of sickening? And even because we talked about with Kanye West and Amber Rose, they have these constant beefs backwards and forwards, and he's married. It just seems to me you've moved on. So how are you keep attaching your emotions back to that? What processes do we have to take so you can be better in your relationship?
Yeah, but first, you kind of have to go back to, we hear forgiveness so much, and people say, well, I forgive, and that means I got to say it's okay, and I have to be friends with that person. A lot of things I've heard in this whole process is of lack of forgiveness. However, it goes back to being hurt. I don't think, my personal opinion, is it really has to do with the fact that he still has feelings for his ex-wife. I think that there was a violation of trust that this man represents to him. So I think that violation is what he's upset about. I think as a wife, I think we would have a lot of concerns at that point. But as a professional, I would look at it and say, yes, I will have the question, why did you bring that up? And now people are going to come to me. It's a place of embarrassment, probably. But I think his issue is a violation that he felt at that time, a long time ago, that he has not forgiven.
So let's talk about that. When you're violated in relationships, and when we're overcoming infidelity. Infidelity doesn't always mean we have to date. I can, we can be homegirls and we can chat, and I can feel like you have created some type of infidelity with me, just in friendship. There's all types of relationships. That's one of my number one pet peeves. Is every time someone says the word relationship, we assume that means people are booed up with each other. But relationships, there's work relationships, there's different types of things like that. So how do you deal when you feel like you've been violated? What are good steps to take to tell someone, hey, you hurt my feelings?
Well, can I go back to just the beginning as far as being married and establishing a relationship with someone? I think a lot of times we throw trust to people who are that are untrustworthy. Ooh. So sometimes I think that we have this expectation that people are going to perform with our expectations, and they have us at the center of their hearts, and they want to give us everything and do everything for us. But we really don't know them well enough to even give them our hearts and give them our trust. So a lot of people form these relationships and assume that the person we're having a relationship with, that we're all in it for the same reason. So before we even talk about being violated, we have to go back and talk about the decisions that you made to be in a relationship with this person. Because 60% of marriages that end in divorce are ended because of infidelity.
Right.
So a lot of that, it didn't just happen one day. A lot of things happened even before they got married. There are so many things when you choose a mate and when you decide to get married. There's so many different aspects of a relationship. There's their childhood and what they bring in from what they learned as a child. All those experiences that they went through as children and relationships with their grandmother and dad and mom and what they saw. You marry that.
And see, I think that's something that people don't understand, that when you marry a person, when you're in a relationship with a person, you're in a relationship not only with them, but with their mother and their father. And then the distance of things that go on, it's a lineage of things that all make up that person. And I think that that's something that we don't take in consider. But you said they begin to trust people that they have not either had time to or that they should not have trusted yet. So does that mean that whole thing of love at first sight is not really true? Or
I think that when you, even from my personal experience, I've been married for almost 20 years. And
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Because, let's take a moment.
Yes, Christopher Riddick, my husband.
Because in this day and age, that's a huge accomplishment.
Yeah,
because people, you said you made it. That's 20.
20 years.
20 years.
But you know what? We
times 365.
Every day. Every day, every second.
I have to add 5 more days because there were 5 years, please. But that's a lot. People, we made references to Kim Kardashian. Her first marriage is less than 72 days.
Wow, that's crazy.
72 days. And I thought it was just her, but you know of and you hear of people that's about how long that they were married. They were married 30 days. What?
Yeah, we just step into some mature. Marriage is for grown, mature, emotionally healthy people.
Say that again. Somebody need to hear.
Mature, emotionally healthy people. And it
Wait. Ebony.
Huh? You know, I'm here for this conversation, first of all.
Ebony's here in the building, y'all. Ebony's was handling our social media during our first segment. She said, marriage is for grown.
I just want to put that on a t-shirt.
Mature, emotionally stable. Is that what you said?
Healthy.
Emotionally healthy people. So some of y'all single. Because either you're not grown. We have a lot of single people that listen to our show.
Well, you know what? I would love to say something to the singles.
Talk to me because we have a lot of people to deal with it. And so what I got from what you said is sometimes marriage is for that group of people. So if you're not in that line of people, that could be a good reason to not jump into a marriage.
Well, yeah, I think one of the biggest mistakes that we do when we're single and we're looking for a mate is we look for us. We say, I want to be with someone. So I want this person to have all these characteristics and all these traits, and I have this checklist. Oh. And the first thing I often ask is, are you that person? What are you bringing to the table?
Come on.
So a lot of times we want marriage to satisfy all these things that we have, all these desires that we have, but we kind of have to step back and ask, what am I bringing to the table? We talk about what love is. Love is patient, love is kind, and we love to have that. But are we willing to give that? Marriage really is about sacrifice. So if you're going into it thinking that I'm going to get full and somebody's just going to fill me up every day, that's false. You go into it understanding that it is a sacrifice. 20 years for me has been sacrifices daily. I love it. I would want to be anywhere else. However, it is sacrifice.
I have a question.
Yes.
And I've been thinking about this a lot lately.
Yes.
I think God brought you to this show for me. So my question is, you were talking about we think that marriage is going to satisfy something for us. Do you think that we're sold a dream as a society? And that's what's leading to this?
I think we believe the scripts that people write.
We
see
so
many.
Wait. She got started getting a bunch of hearts.
Say that again.
We see so many movies, and we see the love story on TV, and about how they looked at each other dreamy, and they made it to this place, and somehow they have this complete understanding of each other. We believe the script. Someone wrote that. Someone made that up. And some of that, we have taken and made it our reality, and we made it the thing that we're looking for.
Right.
Although there is love and those good feelings are there, and you do find your soulmate and you love them with everything.
Right.
But there's a whole different side to it.
So it's not it's not a dream.
No, it's not a dream.
I'm embracing that.
Okay.
So, yeah, thank you for being...
But there are good feelings. I mean, when you love someone, the measure of love in marriage, actually, the person and the relationship that you have on the day of your wedding is often, most of the time, always, it changes. So who I married back in I love
years ago.
Yeah, a couple of years ago. Who I married, and I love him, and I love the person I married, but who he is today, it's a completely different person, although he is the same man. However, who I thought I had, I didn't.
Wow.
And so who he thought he had, he didn't either. So we had to grow.
Somebody said men marry women hoping that they don't change, and women marry men hoping that they do change.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Is that true?
Yes, I think a lot of women that I have had the opportunity to have in counseling, a lot of times they marry people because they see a potential. They say, well, he can be a good guy.
Okay. Y'all know. I almost did that. So and people ask me all the time, what happened? I fell in love with potential. We got a question on Periscope.
Yes.
Someone asked, how do you know when it's quitting time?
When you're asking if it's quitting time.
Ooh.
When you're questioning. I think there is a part of you, a part of us women especially, that there is that little piece of us that knows, that woman's intuition. There's a little thing inside of you that I'm telling you, we know.
And you know everything about it. It's I don't know, what is that?
It is in there, and what we often do is ignore it. When you're in a situation where you are questioning whether that person, not only does he love you, but is he willing to grow with you? Are you growing with that person? Do y'all have the same kind of goals or the same perspective on what relationships and marriage is? My husband and I often, we laugh because we went on our first date, and the first thing I asked him was, are you saved? Do you know Jesus?
Come on.
That was the first thing I asked, and we laughed.
Come on.
Let me tell you why I asked that question. Because there is a certain basic principle that I live by. And if you're living by that same thing, it cancels out a whole lot of stuff.
Come on.
Because I know you understand what marriage is and what my expectations are. I know you understand what that role is and what the expectation of being faithful and growing and family and children and all that stuff is already laid out. So if I find out that you believe that, you may not be perfect.
Come on.
You may not be, a pastor or something. You may not be perfect, but you're willing to grow to get there. That's all I needed.
Well, we're going to take a quick break, but we're going to stay live for our Periscopers because our Periscopers are giving us hearts and tuning in. If you want to see what's going on in the studio, make sure you follow me on Periscope. What can we do leading up to that relationship so we don't have that big catastrophe at the end?
I think you have to know what you want. I think a lot of us kind of don't really know.
But what happens when I don't know?
Then that's some self-exploration you have to kind of do yourself. Because if you don't know what you want, you can't expect them to give you what you want.
Okay, but people make these lists.
Yes.
The queen of the list. So you said if I make my list, that's what I want. Mm-hmm. But then people say I should be able to compromise with my list.
Well, okay. It is confusing. Let me say this. There are some things that are just non-negotiables.
Okay.
You have some things that are non-negotiables. However, people you meet, men, may come and they just come different. I would have never thought I was going to marry my husband. He wasn't the guy I was looking for. But after getting to know him and getting to know him for who he was and his heart and what he wanted, and I listened to his goals and I saw his life living out in front of me, I was like, oh. So when I say I want a financially stable man, and I want him to have a lot of money. Well, at the time, my husband didn't have a lot of money. I mean, he was okay, but he was going. That was a goal of his,
right.
And I saw him living that out. So it wasn't that I'm just, I said I want a multimillionaire. I'm sorry, you're not a multimillionaire. I don't want to be with you. It was I want a guy who was interested in growth, and not necessarily. Then it became he doesn't even have to be rich. You know what I mean? It just has to be concerned, and we just have to be okay. Yes.
Okay. So, do you believe while you're looking for this person, while you're looking for the list, what do you think about dating in the meantime? Like, is it okay to entertain people who are not on that list? Like, just to practice dating?
Practice dating.
I'm dead serious,
No,
man.
seriously, because it's
Your
like,
ass gonna mess around and be on somebody's something.
What am I supposed to do? Just
Entertainment
Well, I
tonight?
think if you're going out and you're being open and honest,
Just don't forget about
there's
those
nothing
little
wrong with that. But I
people.
think if you're leading someone on and
Then it could
they're
be
interested
something.
and you're like, no, I'm just practicing.
How can I make my relationship stay happy? And we always stay good. We always stay at one.
That's a misconception.
Okay,
It's not always good.
Let's talk about it.
That there is always transition happening in a relationship.
Okay.
You have to have an understanding, one, that you have to have that, you always hear not happiness, but joy and contentment, that I'm content with this person. And even through transition, even though we're arguing or even though we don't like each other right now, this is the person I want to not like and still be with. So you just kind of, if I'm going to argue with anybody, I'm going to argue with him. right? If I'm gonna know crazy, I want to know his crazy, right?
Y'all, something is wrong with evidence.
No, it's just like, if I'm gonna be mad, I'm gonna be mad with you, boo.
So how can you get to that point? Because obviously, just going back to how we even got here, I know we weren't in Councilman Dwayne Carraway's relationship. We don't know what all took place. We don't know. But just on surface level, if we just throw synopsis, how can you? We don't like each other right now. You did something that I didn't like. How can you stay? Can marriage really last through anything?
Infidelity or just anything?
Well, infidelity.
Infidelity, yes. But let me say this: it's a lot of work.
Okay.
And if we stay on the subject of the violation of adultery, if that's all you deal with, and you say, okay, I'm sorry, we're just going to talk about adultery and we're going to try to get through the adultery, then it's really hard to get through that. You kind of have to go back to really the first step is being honest and open and being truthful and talk about trustworthiness. Because it's not the adultery, it's not the act of the fact that you cheated on me, it's the fact that you gave yourself permission to cheat on me.
Wow, that's deep.
So it's not, the act is one thing, but all the things that you had to create and you had to bypass to get to the point that you did that, we need to talk about that. Because that's a symptom of a much deeper problem.
So how can we talk about that trust, that my trust was violated?
Well, the first thing I often tell couples is you have to be open and honest. So there has to be a place where we need to talk about what happened. And you have to always be open and honest. And you cannot have communication or contact with whoever you violated my marriage with. So open and honest, cut off all ties, bear it all out. We just need to talk about what happened. And I often recommend that you don't do that alone. You have to have somebody that is not biased, like a therapist or a psychologist or a psychiatrist, someone that can be there to kind of monitor what's going on, because it's a very vulnerable place to be in. So the first step, being honest, opening up, admitting what you did was wrong, and not expecting that the other person just going to say, okay, I forgive you. Because you've been rocking and rolling for a while.
Right.
And then I'm just being let in on the situation.
Right.
So when you come in and you say, I'm sorry.
It takes a while.
It takes a while.
I gotta catch up.
I gotta catch up. I gotta catch up to where you are. So there's a lot of feelings that you go through, the shame, the guilt, wondering if I did something, was I not good enough? All those things, even though you weren't there they made that decision, you weren't there, you didn't do that. That was their decision, but you still some people have some sense of guilt and responsibility for their mate's decision.
You said that it's often great when you're going through this, to go through it with someone else, a counselor, a confidant, a preacher, a licensed therapist. But so many times people, period, no race, no color, no gender, we don't like to tell our business.
Yeah.
So we have to be, when our relationship already has trust issues, now I have to trust that I can come to you.
But then you got to think about it outside of that.
Okay.
Because whatever was happening within that relationship got you there. So you can't go back into the same place and think that you're going to get healed out of it. It's the same relationship. So when you go back and say, well, something was happening here, we weren't, diligent about maybe taking care of the relationship. There's something happened that we weren't aware of. So you can't go back and expect that same situation, that same marriage to now fix it.
Wow.
I got it.
So you need somebody to come in to be a good, sound spiritual person, pastor. But even in that, I strongly recommend that you go to a professional Christian counselor. I love my pastors. They're pastors. However, a lot of them are pastors and they do pastoral counseling. But you need someone who understands relationships, forgiveness, trust, and how to build a family, how relationships work, backgrounds work, childhood works. You need someone to understand that, to kind of help guide you through that. Not X out your church. I think I go to a wonderful church and they stand next to you and they walk with you through that. But they also have a professional counseling department that's there to help us as well. So from that perspective, you have to have somebody with you.
once you get past the trust, the we're going to be honest and open. I know I take I'm a reality TV show buff, and you guys know the Marys are coming back on next week, and I'm gonna watch the whole thing, right? But she chose last season to reveal her complete, just open diary about her relationship, of how she was dealing with the infidelity issues with her husband. And she states that he told her everything, and she was good. She started moving on. He proposed again. They were going to renew their vows. Everything was going great. And then all of a sudden she got back into this place of anger and very mad and upset. And she started doing different things. She was very destructive to one of his classic cars. People know about it. And then the ring that he gave her, again, she hit it over with a hammer. They said it went into millions of pieces. How do you handle that second part when you say, I've gotten over it, I've moved on, but then something triggers and it brings it all back up again?
I think we deceive ourselves to think that once we say we forgave, that the feelings go away.
Okay.
So when you forgive somebody, you forgive them not because you're expecting this feeling to fall over you and say, okay, I forgive them, I'm okay now. Forgiving them means you're no longer bound by that situation, that you're letting that part of it go, but you still have a lot of feelings associated with that you still have to process through. So it's not something that just one day happens. It's over a course of time that you get through the feelings of anger and hurt, and you go in and out of that. One day you're okay, and then you'll hear a song and you're not. One day you're fine, and then because you call him, he doesn't answer the phone right away, you're back where you were. So it just takes time for you to go through that process. It's not immediate.
It's not immediate. So if the process is long, when you hire a therapist or someone to go through that, is that a continuing thing that you have to go to? When does it ever say, okay, we don't need you, the third party, anymore?
One, therapy is not a one-stop shop. It's not one session like, okay, thanks, bye. It's not that. But it is a decision that you, your spouse, and your therapist, you have a plan. We develop these plans in therapy. We say, okay, we're going to go about this amount of time, and at this time we're going to do a check-in to see how everyone is. Some people go 3 months. I go 3 months and say, okay, let's see what direction we're going. Do we need to change the plan? Has something else happened? Then at 6 months, we say, okay, do we need to change this plan? Is something else going on? Some people go to therapy for years. I don't necessarily do that. I don't have anybody that I'm seeing for like 5 years at a time. Mm-hmm. After a year, if you're with me and I'm not helping you, I will help you find someone else. But there's a process.
One of our periscopers asked, what if your spouse does not want to go?
You go. You just go. You go and you start working on you. No, you cannot control another person, but you go. There's so many things you have to work on in spite of that person. If your healing and your emotional health is contingent upon somebody else, you're going to always be sick. So you have to make sure that your healing and your emotional health is taken care of. You have to take care of that. So you still go. And eventually they may want to join in because they see you growing and seeing some positive aspects of therapy, and they may join you, but still go.
Realistically, another question from one of our periscopers, can you ever get back to that feeling you had before the infidelity?
I think if your expectation is to get back to where you were before, I think that's irrational expectation, because where you were before got you to where you are. I think what you have to do is understand that the relationship that you're going to now have is going to be different. It is going to be healthier. It's going to be better. So if the response is if the question is to get back to that place of, well, I love him and I'm excited about him, yes. But it would be from a place of health and of awareness and trust.
That's great. That's great. We're getting a lot of hearts on our Periscope channel and a lot of questions that are popping up. This is so good, because this is the thing that people often want to hear from time to time. Now, you specifically within yourself and your own personal practice, do you only deal with people who are in marriages or people entering into a marriage, or do you just deal with basic couples?
everybody. I deal with singles thinking about marriage. I have a lot of, I call them my 20-somethings, my confused 20-somethings, just embarking on life. I do couples married. They're married. They've been married for a long time. They just got married. They're thinking about marriage. They've been dating for a while. Any place in the relationship. What am I trying to say?
Genre.
Yes. Couples, marriages, yes.
So let's first say this hypothetically. We deal with a lot of hypothetics. If there was a single person who says, I desire to have a relationship. I don't have a particular mate. I don't know where, but I know I have some relationship issues from my past relationships that I deal with.
Yes.
Do you service those type of people?
Yes, and I really highly recommend that you go and talk to someone when you're single to kind of get through some of the things that you've been carrying around for years.
Wow. So you think it's very important that singles see.
Yes, when you're talking about marrying somebody, the thing that
even if you don't have a person in mind?
Even if you don't have a person in mind, because a lot of times it's not until you're in the face of someone else that you understand the experience of you. You can only be you. You don't know what it is to experience you.
Wow.
Right? So when someone else you're in a relationship, and by the time someone's coming at you saying, well, I think you're this and you're this, you're like, I've never heard that. What are you talking about? Right? And you don't understand that a lot of things in your life has affected you, and you come across somebody, and then someone's looking at you telling you all this, you're like, that's not me. That's not me. You have to go in and talk to somebody to kind of figure out who you are and what you want, and all of the things you've dealt with over the years that you still carry around. And some of us have just unforgiveness, so much unforgiveness. So, and then we get into a relationship with someone that we want them to heal all that stuff. I'm going to be happy when I marry that person. This person's going to make me feel okay about myself now. When they can never do that. So they come in blind thinking that this person loves me, but you have them there because you want to be healed.
Wow. Got another question from one of our Periscopers.
Yes.
Periscope, my listeners love to use Periscope. They said, should you ever remarry?
Remarry after infidelity?
I guess just after ending one marriage, should you jump back into another relationship? Well, I guess my question would be, how so many times you see people. You said I had to slow down because I didn't want people to feel like I was talking about them, and I wasn't. And so I had to make sure that I said it in the right manner.
Make it plain.
But do you ever you see certain people that they? I got your question on Periscope, and I'll come back and re-ask it. You see people so many times that they just got out of a bad relationship. Yeah. And to me, it just seems like before we can forget about who that person is, you up with somebody. Have you healed from that? Is that help? How much time should you take before entering into another relationship?
I don't think that there is a certain amount of time as it is. There's a certain amount of work and healing that you have to go through to get there. And some of us take a year, some of us take 2 years, but it's the amount of healing and actually trying to deal with what happened in that relationship and grieve that process. You go through a grieving process after every relationship that ends, and you have to go through that process. Because if you kind of rush into something else, you just pile it on top, and it's just like walking around with a glass about 3/4 of a cup full, and you come in with another 3/4 of a cup, and it just overflows. So you come in full of stuff, in marriage and relationships and stuff, filled with things, and you just can't handle it. So sometimes it just ends in another failed relationship.
Last question from one of our Periscopers. They said, do you think after you've divorced from infidelity, is it ever okay to enter back into another marriage with that same person?
I think that, like I said, you really need to go in and work with someone. I think there has to be clear-cut expectations, a good conversation about what the expectations are. Because remember, there was a certain dance. I always say people in relationships and marriages, they have a certain dance. There's a way that they communicate. Okay. There's a way that they go through life together. And they've grown in this dance together. And sometimes when you leave that dance and you come back, without any kind of healing, without any kind of work, you go back to the dance.
Oh, wow.
So you have to have somebody to go talk to someone to talk about if, we got to understand if you go back to,
Resume things
yes,
where they
you
are.
may start resuming things where they are. I'm not against getting back together. I'm saying that you got to go and, talk to someone and get some kind of help and some kind of insight on what the expectations are going back into that relationship. It can happen and it can be healthy. However, it's with a lot of work.
Well, Miss Shundria, it's been a privilege of
Yeah,
having you
it's been
on
fun.
the show.
We love you.